Hello. So, it's a real privilege for us today to have Mr. Pratik Jain on this career conversations. So, sir is the national practice head of PwC for the indirect taxes service line. So, sir, welcome to the show. I mean, it's a real honor, and I think you are the most profile person who has been featured on this show so far. So, in the next half an hour or so, I'll just ask you some questions which could be of relevance to youngsters who look up to you as a career mentor, as an idol. So, sir, one
Sure.
thing.
Well, thanks a lot for having me. I mean, I don't think I have really achieved anything significant for me to feature in this, but whatever I can do to help others, that's good.
So that's so nice of you. So, sir, please tell us more about your childhood. Like you were born up and brought up in Patna, studied in St. Xavier's. So, how was that journey?
Yeah, so I was born and brought up, as you said, in Patna, and I studied in a school called St. Xavier School. That was a Hindi medium school that point in time. So we used
Oh,
to call physics bhautiki and chemistry rasayan shastra. So I've written everything in Hindi in
oh
that
my God.
sense. Yes, so I studied there, and then after that, after my 10th, I did 12th in science from Science College, which is one of the most prestigious college in Patna as far as science is concerned. Uh, I was never too keen, actually, never too interested in science, but at that point in time, particularly in states like Bihar, you had essentially two, three career choices. Either you wanted to go into civil services, or you wanted to become an engineer, or a doctor. So I think that's where it started. I then tried for a year to go through IIT. I couldn't get through, and then I started my CA at that point in time. So yeah, I mean those are fond memories long back, right? I mean recently my school gave me a significant achievement award, which I got last year.
All
So it's good to kind of go back to Patna and meet with your old friends and things like that.
okay. So, one good thing, sir, is that, for example, I myself have also studied science in class 11 and 12 and then went on to do CA. So, isn't science at plus two always an advantage with our command over numbers, the analytical thinking? So, what's your sense on that? Because a lot of students study science, then later shift to commerce. They feel there's a stigma attached to that because they've not cracked the IIT. Because I also couldn't crack IIT in my days, 2003. Then I was a rank holder in CA. So is that transition always, society kind of tells us a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, and I think we should not worry about what society says, right? I mean, we should do what is right and what we think is right. I think science is an advantage, not science as in physics, chemistry, and biology, but mathematics clearly is an
Yeah.
advantage. And I would perhaps now you have choice, right? So even if you are taking commerce, in 11th and 12th, you can also take mathematics along with that,
Yes.
right? Earlier, in our time, we didn't have these options. So either you take physics, chemistry, biology, and then maths or things like that. So you didn't have those options. So I would think that 11th, 12th, if you take maths as one of the subjects, that definitely does help. Not necessarily the other science subjects, but whether you have done science or commerce or whatever. I mean, I think doing CA is not that difficult to my mind. I mean, yes, but mathematics to my mind gives you a bit of an edge because it's all about numbers at the end of the day, and more sort of you learn to practice mathematics, the better you get in numbers.
Yes, and that might also help in a practice like taxation because a lot of numbers, you kind of become a good number savvy person. So, sir, how was
Yes.
your CA articleship and exam studies in the 90s? I mean, it's like almost 25 years ago, if you were to compare. So, was it more self study? I think the coaching culture had not come in so much, probably. How was your articleship? Like, you
Yeah.
chose.
So I started. Yeah. So I started my CA in '95, where at that point in time CA entrance was used to be called foundation.
Yes.
So that's where I started. That was a time when in Patna, CA was just starting, right? I mean, and you had a couple of good coaching center which had started at that point in time. Of course, now you have many options. So I started in '95 and then did my CA inter in 97, and then the CA final in 98. So the first 2 years of articleship was in a firm in Patna.
Okay.
And then I moved to Delhi to do my final year of industrial training.
Okay.
And that I think is one option which is there today as well. So the final year of CA students, you can do industrial training, which is your articleship in an industry.
Yes.
And that really gave me a lot of good, I would say,
So where did you do that?
game changer. I did it in a company called Motorola in Delhi.
Oh,
Motorola, the
Motorola's
phone company.
was there. So at that point of time also.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was year 98. I started doing articleship there. November 98, I qualified. Then I worked in Motorola for a couple of years before I joined Anderson. And when you work in industry, I mean, I think your perspective changes, right? So that's one thing which I would recommend to CA students, that you should try and work in industry by way of industrial training, if at all that possibility does exist. So for me, it was first 2 years in Patna, and then the final year in Delhi in Motorola as an industrial trainee.
And so study is always self-study, or you opted for some coaching and all?
Yes, so in initial, because I did not know too much about commerce, I did my a bit of a coaching in in a place called Agarwal Commerce Career in Patna.
Yes.
That I did. Then when I moved to Delhi, really with working in Motorola, I did not have enough time really to do various coachings. I did try to sort of attend one or two, but I couldn't do that over a period of time, right? And therefore it was largely self-study. And the problem was that my sort of working hours was quite difficult, right? I mean, I used to go to office at 9:30 in the morning. Many times I was in office till 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, midnight. So I did not get enough time really to study at that point in time, and I got around 2.5 months of leave, 2 months I guess of leave before my final. So
and you still got a rank.
that was a challenge. Sorry, say that again.
And you still got a rank.
No, I did not get a rank in CA final. I got a rank in CA foundation and CA inter. In final, I missed my rank by few marks. Yeah, so I do not get the. But at that point in time, I was not thinking about the rank. I mean, I was just thinking about getting a passing mark, because I just didn't get enough time to study. So on coaching, I mean, I think that self-study is most important. I don't necessarily subscribe to a view that without coaching you can't do a CA. If you really think that in a particular subject you need help, by all means you go, but don't get into this thing that, okay, all my friends are doing coaching and therefore I should do coaching and I should do coaching in all subjects, etc. I don't think that's really required.
I completely agree, sir. So, sir, starting with Anderson, then EY, KPMG, and now PwC, was it like indirect taxes all through, or did you dabble in other service lines before you realized that indirect tax was your ultimate calling?
No. So I never realized that indirect tax was my ultimate calling. I don't think it is my ultimate calling still. In Motorola, of course, I was in finance, so tax was one of the things that I was handling. So that was around 1.5 to 2 years. But in Anderson, I started with indirect tax. Okay, so once you get into indirect tax, then you start growing in that field, and then you start liking it, etc. And then I continued. So for last 18-19 years, I have not done anything other than indirect tax. Now, having said that, I think things like GST, etc., has given you a different perspective. So it's not indirect tax anymore in many ways, because GST does impact every facet of life of an organization. So it talks, it impacts your pricing, it impacts your supply chain, it impacts your IT systems and procedures, impacts your procurements, and impacts your HR, and many things, right? So I feel, when I look back now, that I don't feel constrained by thinking, okay, I've been doing indirect tax per se. I think it has given opportunity to go deeper into the client's business and understand every part of business, which I think perhaps your option to do that under direct tax, etc., is fairly limited. When you do indirect tax, because of transaction tax, you first need to understand the transaction, and So yeah, to answer your question, I've been primarily working in indirect tax, but I think for the last few years, I think the way things have evolved in the country, you got an opportunity to do much beyond tax, so to say, and understand the business part of it as well.
So the first initiation into tax, sir, I'm asking because a lot of people feel that should one opt for a very focused subject matter expert kind of a line. So your initiation into taxation, was it like random, a bit of serendipity, or were you clear that yes, I want to become a subject matter expert and not because you had already spent 2.5 years in finance at Motorola. So then wanting to then get into the tax service line.
No, it was completely random. It was not planned at all. I think after Motorola, I joined at that point in time Ernst and Young for a couple of months, few months. I was in internal audit division. Okay, and at one client place, and I just saw an ad in newspaper, and somebody, there was an ad of Anderson, and I just applied. I never thought that I will get into Anderson. Anderson was a dream firm at that point in time. It was cut above the rest in many ways. I didn't know whether I'll get an interview call. All I still remember, it was 1st of April, and I thought that it was an April Fool that somebody is playing with me, right? So I went and I did the interview. I still remember I bought a 60 rupee shirt from Janpath for that interview, which was a half shirt actually. I didn't even know whether what kind of attire do you have in an interview, etc. So it was completely random. It was not by choice, but once you got into it, you just started sort of doing it. So not plan at all. And I think one lesson that I've learned in life is that you should not do too much of planning. You don't, life is not like chess that you plan every move. I think the beauty of life is that it just happens. And that's what I guess everybody should realize, that a lot of planning really is not required.
Yes, sir. So, sir, the next question is like there are always pros and cons in any given situation. So, in your view, so for example, someone who's been working in advisory like a big four, so should working all through in that comes with its own toll on your system with the tough travel and the work-life balance, hours, client expectations, or should is it like the shift to industry at some later point of time? So that kind of a dilemma a lot of people face that should just Big Four and advisory be my initial launch pad, and later I should have a more stable life in industry. And what about the ones who continue all through? So how do they manage? I mean, it kind of takes a toll on your system, right? The
No, it
expected.
does. I mean, I think there are pros and cons, as you said. And I love working in this environment because every day is a new challenge. You're dealing with a new situation. Every client is different. You work with multiple sectors. You get a new challenge, right? But at the same time, of course, I mean, there is a pressure, of client expectation. There is pressure of new things coming up. There are pressure of business development. There are pressure of collections, and so on and so forth, right? So that's a life that you choose. But uh, having said that, I think that the skill sets that you require in working in industry and the skill sets that you require in working in consulting are some of them are common, obviously, but there are many different skill sets, right? I mean, industry, if you are more technically sort of oriented, and you want to go into the details, and you love execution, and seeing things happening by your own hands, uh, and you don't want too much of pressure on the client side, etc. Of course, not to say that industry don't have pressure, but pressure is of different kind. Pressure is of work, but not really in terms of getting work from the clients, etc. Right? Uh, at our time when I started, industry was not known to be a good paymaster, but now things have changed over a period of time, and in many cases, industry pays as well as consulting. In many cases, it pays more
Yeah.
as well. So really it depends. What your interests are. Is consulting is not for everyone, and so is industry. I mean, I've seen a lot of people moving from consulting to industry over a period of time, particularly those people who do not move beyond a certain level, or they feel constrained, or career progression is a challenge. I've also seen a lot of those people wanting to come back to consulting. Right. So there's no right or wrong in this. Yes, life in consulting and industry both are different. But if you work in industry, my only 2 cents of advice would be that try and move beyond your particular domain and try and take more responsibility. If you work in taxation, try and move beyond that. If you work in finance, try and move beyond that. I think there are many companies today. I've seen the CFOs have become CEOs, right? So don't constrain yourself to say that, okay, I'm a CA and therefore I only need to look at the numbers and the financials and the taxation, right? Take more responsibility, and who knows? I mean, you will become a business head someday.
Absolutely. So the next question is that at senior level, so when you become director and partner, so the role kind of graduates a lot into business development, hunting and farming kind of roles, and then collections. So at that point of time, then isn't it becomes challenging that you're spending most of the day networking with people around? Then how does one stay abreast with the technical issues? But then suddenly at a seminar, you'll be asked to speak on GST, something latest. So then how do you balance, I mean, business development, sales with then that study oriented technical and execution part?
Yeah, so you're right. I mean, I think your role changes, and you don't get necessarily enough time to sort of look at sort of brushing your technical thing. And we try and do this through many ways. So one is that, of course, seminar. When you speak to the seminar, you have to prepare for it. Obviously, right? If you write an article in a newspaper, you have to prepare for it. You have to understand. What we do is we do usually a monthly sort of call or discussion amongst our team. We have a training schedule at each location where people go and train, and many of those training we also attend. Yes, but despite doing all that, we don't have that much time to go through all the sort of provision of the law and notification, etc. And also, as you grow up, you have a larger team that works with you. Yeah. To do all that, right? So if you go to a client is not giving you a situation expecting an immediate answer. Okay. So long as you understand the issue, you can apply sort of various things, apply your knowledge of maybe some other subjects, apply your experience and come back with a solution to a client. That's what the client needs. So yes, you're right that you get lesser time, and therefore you have to at least find some time for that. And you, whether you do it on a weekend, or now there are online things which are like, for example, in PwC we have an app called GST with PwC, and there are more than 33,000 downloads on that. So it's an online app. We log in there and we kind of look at the new notifications, the law, etc. You don't necessarily need to carry your books all the time. When you're traveling from one place to another, you can do that. So you have to change some of those habits, and you have to sort of focus on that. But also, I mean, you have to, you have a larger team working with you and responsible for that. We have in our firm a set of people who we call a COE, who focus on the technicals, and they look at issues, and then they brief all of us. So yeah, it's a challenge, but you have to find time to do that.
Correct. So what kind of career is for people for whom career, like, who should understand that yes, I am suited for a career in taxation, like doing well in CA, and then between taxation, DT, IDT, TP, I mean, there are today so many varieties within taxation. So then should it be random, or if given a choice, what should one opt for and why?
Yeah, so as I said, in my case, it was random, but I don't think it has to be that random in all cases. I think the first decision that you make is whether you want to work, make taxation as a career. Now, whether you want to work in industry or consulting is a different issue, but you want to take taxation as a career, or you just want to go in normal finance, right? So that's the first decision that you have to make. That depends on whether you like taxation as a law. I think everybody is doing CA today knows what a tax consultant's life is, right? So you have to then see whether you are interested in that, okay, and whether that excites you. Now, once you conclude that yeah, tax is something that excites me, and consulting is what something it excites me in this context, then you decide which stream. Now, between direct tax, transfer pricing, indirect tax, of course, indirect tax is, as I said, is a business tax, right? So it goes beyond taxation. You need to have deeper understanding of the business. You have newer opportunities coming up. You have cross-border transactions. You go deeper into supply chain, etc., etc. So it's a different kind of tax. It's not purely, but also there's a lot of technology which is coming in, particularly in indirect tax. If all the GST filings are electronic, and people are coming with technology and tools to do the compliances. So we are moving towards more managed services as far as compliance is concerned. So technology is driving indirect tax, and business is driving indirect tax. Transfer pricing, of course, if you're interested in economics and how cross-border trade takes place and how sort of profit shift takes place and things like that, that's an exciting area to be in as well. And direct tax, of course, if you're interested in the structuring piece and the and all of that. So I guess you have to sort of see where your interest lies. I mean, but many cases people are unsure, and at that point in time you may just want to join either of these fields, and then after a year or so, see whether whether you want to switch. Right, and all of us, I mean, most of the firms offer that opportunity for you to switch if you want to do that. But also you have to realize that all the taxes today are converging into one. I mean, in many ways, right? I mean, direct tax and indirect tax authorities are talking to each other. In times to come, there are countries where there is only one tax department. You don't have a separate direct tax department, separate indirect tax department. Today, what you file for income tax can be scrutinized by the GST authorities and vice versa.
Yes. Yes.
Very soon, the income tax returns might have information about GST as well. So all taxes, in a way, is converging into one as well. So maybe in next few years there may not be too much of distinction between these streams as well.
So, what has corporate life taught you on your path? I mean, what have been the key learnings of corporate life? It has its own shade of black, white, gray. I mean, what do you think really one must stick on to? Only work, on networking, a good godfather? There are different shades.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's. I can go on and on about this topic because there's several things that I have to talk about. But if I have to pick up two or three things, I think that we don't obviously need. My belief is that you don't need a godfather. You don't need anybody to support you. You just need to do what you think is right, okay, and put in your best effort. With me, what happened was when I joined consulting, my experience in Motorola was completely discounted, and I was very upset at that point in time. And then initial 1 or 2 years, I did not, get enough recognition and promotion and things like that. Anderson also merged with Ernst & Young at some point in time. So I felt that I lost 2-3 years in the beginning, but then I gained as well later, right? And I became a partner in 2008, which was 10 years from the year of qualification. I qualified in 98, became a partner in 2008. So 10 years, very few people become partners, right? So I feel that the thing that I'm saying is that don't evaluate yourself every 6 months or a year. If you think that you're good, if you believe in yourself and you're doing the right things, then things will happen to you. Okay. I think people by and large around you are not bad people. We may question that, okay, I have not got promoted because of XYZ person or the process, etc. But I feel that generally people around you are good. They mean well. Okay. You don't need to be skeptical too much. Just do the right things. And if you have lost out a year or 2 years, don't worry about too much, and you will make it up. There is a little gain in comparing yourself with others, and half of the grief that is caused in corporate is that, okay, my increment is 10%, but my somebody else is 12% and things like that. If you do too much of comparison, I think you don't. The third thing is I would look at any person, and when I look at my the people who work with me, I always see that, okay, what is that person doing beyond his immediate call of duty. So let's say if I'm working on indirect tax in my own area, am I willing to take additional responsibility? Am I willing to stick my neck out? How often do I raise my hand to help others? What do I do beyond my own area, right? So somebody can take sort of responsibility for knowledge management. Somebody can take for a technology product. Somebody can take for finance or whatever, right? So more and more responsibility you take, more enthusiasm you show, people would recognize you more. I think that's and the last thing is that we should not take our lives too seriously, and I think that happens with a lot of people. We have to realize that we are one of 800 crore people in this planet, right? So you go get one day, and today is not going to come back again. So there's no gain saying that, okay, look, I'm working for 15 hours, I don't have time, and I don't have personal life and this and that. You have to balance it out. I mean, you can enjoy, you can have fun while working. You can find a time for yourself during the day, half an hour, go out for a walk, do whatever. But if you are always in the self-victimization mode, that I'm not doing this because I'm this, that's only an excuse to myself. You can lead a perfectly balanced life, and maybe there would be case situation where you may not be, but over a period of time, if you just manage your time well, you will have fun and you will work well as well.
And so does one need also to be lucky also for becoming a high profile person? Luck also has its own share of play.
I think it does. I mean, in Hindi, you say that there are two aspects: mehnat and muqaddar and mashakkat, right? That's what you say, right? And I think luck is there. Obviously, I mean, being at the right time at the right place. I think it's luck. I mean, somebody who joined a practice 2 years ago when GST was coming in my practice was perhaps lucky at that point in time, right? So therefore luck definitely plays a part, but at the same time that's something which is beyond your control. So there's no point saying that, look, he got it and I did not because he was lucky. Okay. So I feel that you are consistently at it and you work hard, then luck also starts favoring you. I mean, there is a saying that luck favors the brave, right? So I think if you do that consistently. So let's say if Virat Kohli plays a shot and he nicks the ball and wicketkeeper drops his catch, he can say, okay, I'm lucky, and then he scores 100 after that. But if he's not a good player, he will not. The luck will just run out after 2-3 matches. I mean, he'll start getting out. But he's a good player. Then over a period of 50 matches, 100 matches, 200 matches, he will definitely do well. So luck can favor you in specific situations at that point in time. But luck cannot be with you forever, right? So yes, luck plays an important part, but by doing the right things, by working hard, by being at it, you can get the luck at your side as well.
It's kind of complementary. It in isolation will not make you successful. It at times will complement your hard work.
Absolutely. It can make you successful in isolation for a very short period of time. You can win a lottery ticket for 50 crores. I mean, of course, it can make you successful overnight, but that does not last forever. Right?
Yeah.
So, luck is one of those things which just helps once in a while.
So you are one of India's most highly coveted subject matter experts on GST, because in the media, whenever there is something related to GST, they certainly look up to you for what's your take on it. So how's that feel? It kind of brings in a lot of responsibility that, your view will always be counted as amongst the one which will be printed on the front pages. Especially with respect to the transition of the GST, we saw a lot of your views all over the papers, CNBC, ET, everywhere. So how is that? So how do you manage that kind of stakeholder expectations that, yes, you are one person who is now looked upon as?
Yeah, so that's again not easy, and I think that's the 2-3 things which comes to mind. One is that you should be able to take a stand on issues which may not necessarily be in interest of your clients, which may not be in interest of a particular set of people, may not be in interest of myself. If I, for example, if I recommend that GST should be simplified more and more, why should people come to a consultant like us, right? So therefore, there is always a conflict between what you say and what could happen, right? So first thing is that you should be willing to stick your neck out, and you should, why do people come to me for comments? Perhaps one of the reason is that they feel that, okay, this person will not be on fences. Okay, this person will take a stand, whether this move is right or wrong, or partly right or partly wrong, right? So you should be willing to take a stand, and that stand has to be impartial, not looking at a particular set of people or the advantage of your client or your firm or your, sort of yourself, right? It's not that easy. The second is that whenever a comment is asked for, and sometimes it is on a more real-time basis, a GST council meeting, and I'm on CNBC, you comment on things by just listening to it. You should always guard yourself, before making a comment, because you may not have all the facts. So if you have all the facts, you can look at it, you can analyze, and then comment on that, which is how it should be done. Sometimes you don't have all the facts. Budget announcements coming, FM says something, there is a comment that you make. So always, I think you should make a guarded comment. So it feels good when there is a sense of responsibility. Is definitely it, but also there is a lot of hard work which has gone to it. I mean, the reason why, to my mind, one of the reason is that why people come to me and why am I friendly with most of the journalists, beside the point that, okay, I may be taking a stand and I may be, articulate, is the fact that I've invested a lot of time over last 10, 20 years in building that relationship. So never, there have been instances where somebody would come to me and I said, okay, I want to understand this issue. And you have to take your time out, and then you have to explain that person. You have to meet and explain that this is how it is, not necessarily because the person is quoting you or giving you publicity, but because you genuinely want to help that person. So over a period of time, you build those relationship with journalists as well. So it's not going to happen overnight. It takes time. You have to build your network with media, and then gradually it happens. But most important thing is you should present your views in an impartial manner, and you should not be afraid of taking a stand. Can you hear me?
So how has been India's transition into GST? I think we were all very, very upbeat. Now we're almost 2 years now into the thing. Do you think at the ground level it has really achieved the end objectives of easing business, etc.? I mean, just from an academician perspective, not really wanting to.
No, I think it's I think directionally it is definitely a much better tax regime. Has it met all the objectives? Perhaps not, and there are multiple reasons for that. Okay, uh, um, some compliance related challenges and technology related challenges is one, and people did not find it easy to file returns, etc., and particularly the smaller businesses. Then you have the government had to dilute the whole structure. Recent being real estate, where they have come up with a composition scheme without input credit, etc. There have been cases where they feel that industry has not passed on the benefit to the customer, and hence some of those decisions have been taken. So there are structural issues, there are infrastructural issues, etc. But what GST is doing on the ground is that it is promoting the culture of compliance, and I think that's very important, because in this country the main challenge has been the tax to GDP ratio has been very, very small if you compare that with the more developed countries. And you have to expand the tax base without increasing the tax rates, right? And that's where things have started to happen. People are finding it difficult to evade now, because the data is with the GST, and they can do data analytics. They can come and catch you in a much more effective manner. The exports are becoming more competitive, because you are getting refund of all your input taxes. So I think, and all the states have one common law. I mean, you had earlier, all the state VAT laws were different, and managing business was so difficult. So I think we are going in the right direction. But of course, 2 years is too less as a time to really sit and sort of take a judgment call how successful it has been. The tax base is definitely increasing. I think we have to give it more time. In a country like ours, when 1.3 billion people, it's not easy to implement this kind of a thing, right? So once it settles in better, maybe next 2, 3, 4 years, you will see the real benefit of GST coming in.
So your blog, My 2.5 Cents, is quite an interesting read. So it's going through that. So what's your motivation to share learnings? And doesn't it become a big demanding, given your hectic schedule as a partner level, to take time out to write? And you even comment on IPL and all. We've been following you're on Twitter, and also, I mean, how do you do that? Like a Superman of sorts.
So let me tell you that there was no intention for me to share my learning and all that. It was I always had this thing of at some point in time I wanted to become a journalist, and I feel that if I did not I had not go venture into CA, I would have been perhaps a journalist or a writer, and I perhaps would have been a much more successful professional in my own in that field. So I had this passion of writing, and when I was transitioning from my earlier firm to PwC, I had some few months of gardening leave, as we call it. So I did not have too much thing to do, and that is the point in time when I started my blog. Now, of course, you don't get enough time to write, so I'm doing that. Most of my blog are more humorous, etc. And I think that sense of humor is something that everybody should have. And there's something which you might not know is that I have recently started some stand-up comedy as well. So I go to stage and I try and make people laugh. So various things I'm trying to laugh. So it is more about what you feel and what you want others to your viewpoint, and that's what it is. It is challenging, but I like now I write a lot about as a material for my stand-up comedy, which I have not put too much on blog, because every week or so I go to stage, etc. So I have to prepare for that. But when I'm traveling, when I'm on flight, I don't have much to do. I do write, and I hope some of that people would appreciate and like.
So amazing. So, I hope if everyone starts becoming like you, we will have far more intellectual content because it comes from people who've really seen it and done it. So one quick question, like because you had Hindi at your schooling, and if one were to hear your English today, I mean, it is fantabulous in terms of diction, grammar. So what was your quick stance on how do you do that transition?
That's a tough one. So yes, I mean Hindi was not my first language. I did not study Hindi till 10th. Even in 12th, people in Patna, of course, we never used to communicate in English. Two things I think helped. One is, if I recall my early childhood, my grammar teacher in my school, and I think once you have a good base on grammar, okay, then it's all about practicing, right? But if you don't have a strong base of grammar, you don't know the tense and all of those things, then your base is not good, and therefore for you to really later sort of develop into someone who speaks well is relatively more difficult. I think my thing started changing when I joined Motorola and Industrial Training, because it was a US company. People used to sort of communicate in English. And then of course I joined Anderson. First time I went to a client meeting, I remember, I was so nervous. I had my ears red and all that. It was very difficult for me to speak. But gradually, I mean, you started doing this more. You have to put in a lot of effort in terms of going out and speaking your mind and speak and find more opportunity to speak. I think that's the only trick. So two things. One is focus on grammar, and second is finding more and more opportunity to go and interact with people. I think these are the two things that will help you.
So final question: what would do you think would be your advice to the so-called millennials today? I mean, the era in which they are growing is quite different from the ones in which probably you or me grew up. So what's your advice to them in terms of the various things?
Who am I to give them advice? I think I should be the one who's taking advice from them. I guess they have their lives much more sorted. Um, but I mean, nothing specifically. Some of those things which I have said in this sort of session, I would perhaps reiterate again. Um, I think in today's time they have got lot many options that we had. So sometimes options are good, sometimes options confuses you more. Whatever you choose, I think you should try and excel in that, right? So that's one. I mean, whether you are a painter or you're a singer or you are a CA or whatever, I think try and do the best. Second, I think there's millennials. I also feel that while they are much more technology friendly, because technology is changing the shape, etc. And there are many more who are coming and saying that, okay, I want to be involved in this. They are always on their gadgets and things like that. And I, I'm perhaps not the right person to advise, because I also do some of those things. But they do not necessarily pay enough attention to their health and all of that, right? So and that's something which really bothers me. And third and last is that you got only one life. I mean, my Facebook, if you've seen that profile, it says that everybody has got two lives, okay? And you start your second life when you realize that you have only one, right? So so that's how it is. I mean, don't take yourself too seriously. Just go and have fun. But at the same time, don't try and do too much of experimentation. A lot of these millennials come to me and say, okay, I worked for 1 year in this, and now I'm bored. Now I want to do something else, and I spent 2 years in this. Now I'm getting bored. That at the end of the day, if you want to make a career in something, that will not sort of, the very few people can afford to do that level of experimentation. Of course, you should do experimentation, but not as frequently as they want to do.
That's a fair answer. You just point for choices. I think that has also come with its own attendant shortcomings. We had very clear CA करना है, अगर बाद में MBA होगा तो ठीक है, it's fine. But अभी actually CFA, ACCA, so many service lines, kind of. Okay, sir. Thank you so much for taking time out for this show. I'm sure the youngsters are going to benefit a lot from your candid reflections on your, amazing and illustrious journey. And who would not want to become one like you, maybe 20 years down the line? So thank you so much, sir, for sparing time out.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye-bye.